Hey there, welcome back to the channel and welcome to our 2019 Journey to Alaska wrap-up. We had such an amazing time in Alaska, but honestly the highlights of our trip was being able to share it all with you, our Jones to Travel family. We had so much fun sharing our Alaska adventures that we created some 22 episodes showcasing the biggest highlights of the trip. Our wish is that these episodes help guide you when planning your trip to Alaska and give you some ideas of what to do while visiting the state. And if you aren't planning on a trip to Alaska, that's okay too. Hopefully this video series will give you a glimpse into what it's like to travel to Alaska and some of the beauty that the North has to offer. We also want to thank you all for following along and sharing in the ups and downs as we accomplished the unforgettable. Beginning in Quartzsite, Arizona, we traveled all the way to Alaska and then back to East Glacier, Montana. This monumental trip covered nearly 8,000 miles, required about 975 gallons of diesel fuel, and roughly 70 gallons of propane. We initially announced our trip while boondocking near Zion National Park in Utah. Zion National Park is really a perfect place to announce a journey of this magnitude because the Zion area itself is so magnificent and amazing in its own right. We left Zion and traveled up through Salt Lake City to Bend, Oregon. In Bend, we were able to take care of some last-minute upgrades, adding airbags to the truck and getting our cat's booster shots in preparation for crossing into Canada. After completing a few preparation tasks in Bend, we traveled up the Oregon-Washington coast, stopping along the way to visit some lighthouses before making our way to the beautiful Peace Arch Park in Blaine, Washington. At this point, the journey was becoming a reality. We knew that once we crossed into Canada, there was no turning back and nothing would stand in our way of completing this monumental trip. The day had finally arrived and we woke with nervousness and excitement as we headed toward the Canadian border, crossing at Sumas, Washington. All of our fear and nervousness was for naught. We successfully crossed the border without any trouble at all because our previous preparedness had paid off and we were on our way to Alaska. After an overnight stop to replenish groceries, we headed on to Dawson Creek, British Columbia, and the infamous Mile Zero of the Alaska-Canadian Highway. Troubled by a reoccurring fuel issue, we stopped in Fort Nelson, BC to replace a part, then set off for Liard Hot Springs and Watson Lake, Yukon. Shortly after departing Fort Nelson, we experienced a complete breakdown of the fuel part we had just replaced 70 short miles before. We were stuck on the Alcan Highway without any means to proceed. Quick thinking and a little ingenuity got us back on the road in no time. We ended the day's drive at Liard Hot Springs and enjoyed a well-deserved and super relaxing soak in the springs. The following day, we woke refreshed and made our way to Watson Lake and the Signpost Forest. There, we left our mark, along with thousands of other signs memorializing so many others' visits before ours. We even found a couple of signs left by fellow YouTubers that we follow and admire. It was pretty neat and a little overwhelming to see all the signs left by those traveling before us. Back on the Alcan, we approached the turnoff to the top of the World Highway. We decided that since we'd come this far, we might as well take the drive to the top. What a great decision it turned out to be. We arrived in Dawson City, Yukon that evening and rode the ferry across the Yukon River to continue our journey across the top of the World Highway. The views at the top of the world are simply breathtaking, so we stopped for a bit to take them all in. We then crossed the border into Alaska and stopped to visit Chicken, Alaska. Chicken is a cute little touristy town, and who doesn't want to say they've been to Chicken, Alaska? Continuing on from Chicken, we connected once again with the Alaska-Canadian Highway and made our way to Tok, Alaska for a much-needed truck and rig wash. Wow, that was a lot of dirt. Back on the road, we made our way to Delta Junction, Alaska and the end of the Alcan. This really is a must-stop to rest a bit and reflect on the monumental journey we had just completed. We were in Alaska and ready for the Alaska adventures to begin. Our first stop would be Fairbanks, where we enjoyed touring the little town of North Pole, Alaska, and what we fondly called Santa's summer home. If you love all that is Christmas, you'll definitely get a kick out of North Pole, Alaska. While in Fairbanks, and after talking with some fellow travelers, we decided to venture out and experience the Chena riverboat excursion. This fully narrated riverboat experience took us up the river to see a sled dog demonstration and then docked at a mock-up Chena Indian village, where we were treated to an afternoon of Chena Indian culture narrated by a group of young native girls. They did a great job of educating us on the daily Chena Indian life before white settlers arrived in Alaska. One bucket list item we were able to check off the list was the Midnight Sun Run. This 10K run weaves in and out of neighborhoods in Fairbanks where locals celebrate the midnight sun and really know how to throw a party. Shortly after the Midnight Sun Run, we headed south toward Denali National Park. While in Denali, we enjoyed visiting the Sled Dog Kennels, where we were treated to a demonstration and a lesson of the duties of the sled dogs in the park and the historical significance of these amazing animals. Unfortunately, though, the weather was not cooperating and we didn't get the clearest view of Denali herself from inside the park, so we decided to travel a bit further south to Tok Alaska. In Tok, we hooked up with K2 Aviation and took a flight to the mountain and landed on Ruth Glacier. This was an epic adventure that was simply amazing. The folks at K2 Aviation were great, and we recommend this excursion to anyone looking to get up close and personal with Denali herself. We hung around the Tok area for a bit longer and treated ourselves to an authentic Alaska Railroad train ride. This particular trip was on the Hurricane Turn Train, a train that carries people, equipment, and supplies to the interior of Alaska and is the only method of transportation for the folks who reside in these remote areas. We had a blast on the train and learned so much more about life in remote Alaska. We had a ton of fun exploring Denali and Talkeetna, but we're anxious to get further south and experience coastal Alaska. Our first coastal stop was Seward, Alaska. Seward is such a beautiful little town with so much to offer. We camped along the waterfront, and from there we easily walked to restaurants, shopping, and the Seward Sea Life Center. Feeding the puffins was on order the day we visited the Seward Sea Life Center, and it was not only educational, but just fun to watch all those birds play and get all the fish they could eat. While in Seward, we journeyed just a bit out of town to Kenai Fjords National Park and exit Glacier. This easy to moderate 1-mile hike to the toe of the glacier afforded us the opportunity to come face to face with the glacier and witness how far the glacier has retreated. We were surprised to see how rapidly Exit Glacier is retreating, so if you plan on visiting, make it quick. The glacier may not be visible in another decade. One thing that had been on our mind since arriving on the Alaska coast was halibut fishing. That in mind, we left Seward and headed toward the Ninilchik and Homer areas in hopes of catching the big one on a halibut charter. We fell in love with the Ninilchik Deep Creek area and quickly booked a charter with Ninilchik Charters for our very own halibut excursion. The morning of our trip arrived, and we were welcomed aboard the Endeavor with Captain Frank and First Mate Angelia. These two took great care of us, and we had a blast deep-sea fishing for halibut. Tina caught her first fish ever, and we ended up coming away with about 28 pounds of fresh halibut fillets. Not too bad for our first ever fishing charter, but I have to hand it to the crew with the Ninilchik Charters. They were awesome. After leaving Ninilchik, we headed to Valdez to check out the salmon fish hatchery. It's almost unbelievable how many salmon make the journey back each year to the spawning grounds. The numbers are truly staggering. We enjoyed a week or so exploring the Valdez area, but soon it was time to head back to the lower 48. Winter was rapidly approaching, so we prepared to head out. We enjoyed a different route on the way back down and brought you guys along to view some of the scenery along the Cassiar Highway. We stopped in at Banff, Alberta to visit with some friends and rode the gondolas to the top of the mountain for breathtaking views of Banff. And finally, we crossed back into the States at East Glacier, Montana, and just like that, our unforgettable summer in Alaska had come to an end. We had such a great time in Alaska, and we loved sharing it all with you guys. If you haven't had a chance to check out our 2019 Journey to Alaska video series, I'll put a link up above, so go check out all 22 videos there. Thanks for checking out the video. If you have any questions at all about journeying to Alaska, please don't hesitate to ask and leave a comment below, and we'll be sure to answer the best we can. Thanks for subscribing to the channel, and if you aren't already subscribed, what are you waiting for? It's free, and you don't want to miss out on all the adventure to come. We really do appreciate you following along. Well, that's a wrap on our 2019 Journey to Alaska. Until next time, safe travels. Bye.